This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Today we're going to introduce to the show Terry Batcher.
Hello. Hi, kids.
Good morning, Terry. And we're going to be continuing with the death of Mark Stebbins and the Oakland County child murders today. And you've provided us with a lot of great information. We'll be diving right into that after we introduce our other guest, Nolan Del Campo, attorney at law.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Harry Touche. Yes, it is. And Harry Touche, our code solver.
Oh, thank you. And thank you what you sent me, guys, this week. I enjoyed working on it.
Oh, the secret witness letter we haven't gotten to yet. Yes.
That's a big one.
Yes, it is, because the communications are kind of what ties everything together here as we look at that handwriting, the suggestive messages, even the internal messages, if you will, as Harriet is finding with her solves. We left off last week with Mark Stebbins, and we were going over some of the FOIA files that was obtained by Cathy Broad, which is the sister of Timothy King, the final victim in the Oakland County child murder crime spree. And Terry has, lots of effort put into going through all of these particular documents to see what you could weed out and see what might actually pertain to the case and what might not. When we left off last week, we were talking about an individual named William Allen Peterson, correct?
Yes.
Now, I know that the Allen name in there has some cross connection to the letter to Dr. Danto. We have an individual who is claiming to be an accomplice that was helping or assisting the murderer in unwillingly helping, I suppose he tries to claim. But fictional. Allen, what's that?
A fictional person, right?
Yeah. And we know that Allen is also a cross connection to the Zodiac Killer because he was also a suspect in the Zodiac Killer crime sprees. So sometimes it seems like sometimes they're actually building the patsy while they're building the crime.
Right. Arthur Leigh Allen.
Arthur Leigh Allen.
Kind of turned out to be kind of a nothing burger for the most part, but some interesting tidbits,
Yes. So. I mean, Arthur Leigh Allen was cleared on fingerprints, handwriting, DNA. They searched his house and his properties and his mother's properties and many places, many times, and were not able to locate any evidence that would have connected him to the crime spree. And unfortunately, he died of a heart attack when he was 58 years old. And now this is kind of the person that the internet would like to tout. I mean, Robert Graysmith blamed him. Everybody has blamed this man, even though he's been cleared on every single level.
Hey, how come
you had something to say there?
Tom Boyd is correct. Tom Boyd is 100% absolutely correct. Bullshit.
Well,
absolutely correct on what? Hold on. I need my listeners to completely understand. He's correct on what?
That's what if you look at his history, Tom Boyd, he's absolutely correct. Arthur Leigh Allen is it, despite the DNA, despite the handwriting, despite everything. And that's the way he's been presented. So people still get beat up to this very day, and I think on Reddit and other. So,
Reddit is the liar's camp. Reddit is the liar's camp.
Well, I think that his two favorite suspects are Richard Gaikowski, who looks nothing like the Zodiac, and Arthur Leigh Allen, who again looks nothing like the Zodiac.
He probably gets a check in the mail for his propaganda.
Oh yes, he does. Oh, he
Oh,
owns all. He
exactly.
owns all the clips, the media representations, the news clips, the reels, the footage, the pictures. He has all of the images from scans, high resolution color scans that they've altered, that they put out there on the internet for us to see. Yes, he owns all of this, evidently. Either way, I think it's
But he
quite
doesn't
comical.
own the truth, though.
No,
That's
no,
right.
no. He
No.
disseminated. Yeah, no, that's disinformation. There's definitely no truth there. I think back to the composite of the Zodiac that was actively drawn by, or at least given the eyewitness accounts to by a police officer. So when I look at that particular composite and I think about the individuals that Tom Voigt tries to portray as the possible suspect, the only thing that comes to mind is something that my ex-husband used to say to me and used to make me crazy, but he'd say, "Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?"
Yeah. Right.
Don't believe the cops' take on it. Don't believe the composite that was drawn based on the eyewitness account of the officer. Believe what Tom Voigt is telling you, and you have your suspect.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, back to Oakland County child murders. I swore I was done ranting on Voigt, but somehow he just keeps coming back up.
I think you're counteracting thousands of lies that have occurred. You're going to have to be redundant in your own presentation points, just to get things across to people, because they got certain things in their heads and their minds don't change easily. So speak the truth often to counteract it.
Right.
So
back to
go ahead.
So back to William Allen Peterson. It looks like I don't know if you know where his name was derived. Do you know how they came up with this suspect?
Yes. Let me just say first, before you go into this stuff, this is strictly the original documents that were generated right after this crime happened. These OCCK crimes had several different looks at them. There's different eras so this is a fresh off the press one, if you know what I'm saying. He lived downstairs of where Stebbins lived. In fact, so that's why he made the suspect list. And he was a bad actor from the sense that he was charged with raping some woman, but I think it got weeded down to something of a lesser charge. But it was a serious rape charge. So he was on the hot seat for this thing. He showed up. He showed up at the funeral, which occurred on the 23rd. The body was found on the 19th. And the funeral was on the 23rd of that month. And he showed up, and his name was on the funeral registry. And so he came up, and there's documents that we have about him that you can read about him. But he was looked at very closely and was not considered a suspect. But, what goes on behind the scenes isn't always clear. You know what I'm saying? So
correct.
It's very, very interesting.
Well, somebody must have said that he was an employee of the Dubs Country Kitchen, because this document states that they spoke to Martin Potashnik of the Dubs Country Kitchen on 10 Mile in Greenfield. He was questioned on several points as to whether suspect worked there and how garbage was taken out. That's an odd request, but he states William Allen Peterson did not even work there. The garbage is taken out at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. It is taken out in garbage cans or plastic bags, and it is carried and placed in the compactor. So where the body's found is, I don't see a compactor around it. I know maybe I should have placed that picture back up there again, but
there was one. In fact, there was a compactor, but he wasn't, of course, placed in the compactor. He was near that area. The body was placed there. But
gotcha.
Isn't it interesting, though, that there would be these peripheral things about this particular suspect? The remarks of garbage was taken out and all that. But then again, that's all explainable, though, too. But anyway, it turned out that he did not work and never worked at the Dubs Country Kitchen, from what I gather.
So you always have to wonder how they got that information and how they came to those conclusions.
Exactly. Good point. And exactly. And so, and what was told them about him when they got that information? And that's the problem with some of these files, is that you don't get an explanation as to why did they go barking up this tree. But there's a reaffirmation in the fact that he lived downstairs where Mrs. Stebbins lived, supposedly.
Well, yeah. And I mean, quite frankly, the Dr. Danto letter hasn't come out yet indicating that Allen the accomplice. So
And
that there would not have been a match to that at this point, because that comes much later, I think, even after the final killing of Timothy King, right?
I don't remember the exact chronology. That's something I have to bone up on, but I believe you're correct in what you just said. So, but it comes after this. It comes after this, and I believe it comes certainly after Jill Robinson, which is next to look at. So
right.
So
this is more that they had to say on Peterson. It says interview with below subject at the Troy PD on 3/15/76. Let's see. They had several. Oh, look at this. Present were you guys. This is interesting. Present is John Hagg of SFPD. Is that what that freaking says right there? I'm wondering. And Lorne Down, SFPD, Lieutenant Pat Sullivan, YPD, that would, and Sergeant Neil Daly of MSP. That says SFPD. Do we have another SFPD in Michigan?
Not that I know of.
Right?
I think that's why they were thinking that this was a Zodiac connection. That's why I interjected a little bit more about Tom Voight, because the OCCK killings were on his site as well. So anyway, just keep going. I remember following all this early years, many years ago. Jeez.
No, hold on. I'm like wanting to fall out of my chair. I clearly didn't read your stuff, Terry B, because I knew you were going to be the one presenting and talking about it. But I'm like a little bit shocked right now that we would have law enforcement from SFPD present at the interrogation of this William Allen Peterson in Michigan. I'm just a little floored right now.
I wondered the same thing, but that was one of those reasons that I like to have you and Harriet around, is I thought SFPD, I thought the same thing, but it's like so many things, I had to set it aside and move on to other bigger things. So yes, that's a very good point. I was trying to pull that document up on my files to take a look at it, but why don't you read it? And SFPD, yeah. I mean, I think Harriet nailed it.
What are they doing there? What are they doing there?
Well, they're
covering it
well,
up.
they obviously believe that the Zodiac Killer could possibly be responsible for child murders, which is something I've stated based on the communications. At this point, we don't have any communications in this case. There's been nothing written. So why in the world would SFPD be even involved in this? All right, guys.
But it had criminal characteristics. The crime had characteristics that would parallel, and it actually fit with the threats that the Zodiac Killer persona made. So
yes, and I believe he started with children. I believe there were children throughout. I think that ultimately speaking, when after the assassination of JFK, it's always been a well-known thought in my head is that they don't assassinate the president anymore. They take out the kids. The mob doesn't hurt you through hurting you, because then they come under suspect for murdering you. They hurt your children. They hurt your family. They take your entire family in some cases. Look at the Kennedys.
Or a namesake as well, which I think that may be the case with Stebbins, which Harriet had brought up. It came up that it was somebody else's name, by the way, as being Mark Stebbins' father. But I still say that could be a veiled threat or part of a veiled threat to the Stebbins person they're trying to control. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're going to see evidence that they were trying to control Chris Bush's father, and that he went through and burned a bunch of his papers in his house after the Chris Bush alleged suicide. But why don't you go ahead on this one? All
right. So it says Peterson was read his constitutional rights by Sergeant Daly, which he stated he understood. He stated he would talk to these officers, reference above complaint. He states on Sunday, 2/15/76, he is almost sure he was in Shepherd, Michigan with his girlfriend, Stephanie Worstler. He came back to his home in Birmingham on 2/17/76. On 2/22/76, Sunday night, he heard on the news about Stebbins' death. He states he went to the funeral home on 2/22/76 at 7 p.m. After the funeral home visit, he went to a friend's home on Muir in Hazel Park, Keith Blackwell. He stated that he was bummed out over the boy's death and got loaded. He went home and slept until 11 a.m. the next day, 2/23/76. He stated that he should check with his girlfriend. She could possibly be exact with dates and times, as he was not too good in this area. He states he lived below the Stebbins family for 6 months with his girlfriend. He knew Mrs. Stebbins and the older boy, but not too much contact with Mark. He stated Mark was a tough little kid and was no dummy. He got in a normal amount of fights with his brother, who referred to Mark as urchin. He states Mark appeared to be a follower and had lots of friends. He states they moved out of 429 East Saratoga approximately 1/16/76. He was helped by his father, the older Stebbins boy, and one of his friends, and Stephanie Marstler, to move out. So evidently he moved out before the death and was already gone.
Yep.
So the next one here says, officer received tip from below, reference above complaint, phone Steve Segrist, Circuit Court Probation Department. Above states one of his probationer is out on probation for an aggravated assault charge stemming from a rape charge in Troy where he forced a girl to have oral sex with him. He states suspect made the statement to him that he used to live at 429 East Saratoga below the Stebbins family. He stated he knew Mark and spent a lot of time with him. Oh, all of a sudden this is a different version. He also states he gave him a 10-speed bicycle. He states he was last known to live on Saratoga on 1/7/76. Mr. Segrist states while in prison so her probationer is out on probation for an aggravated. So are they literally talking about, okay. He states he knew Mark. He states was last known to live on Saratoga. Mr. Segrist states while in prison, 2 of the suspects inmates say suspect perform oral sex on other inmates. He states subject has a lot of hostility against man and woman and is very dangerous. And so he's referring to this William Allen Peterson.
Right. And so I think you just got your answer to the question as to, well, how did they know to link him? There's inside information. This guy is he's been in prison. They know that he's performed oral sex on somebody, or allegedly, and that that he's one of the usual people that these people would cultivate. You know what I'm saying? The people that are behind these murders. So,
okay.
But I mean, he's. Go ahead, Nolan.
The date on this one is it how different is it from the date on the previous one?
Let's see. The date on the previous one was 3/3/76. So I just have them out of order. We would have seen that ahead of time. So now he is somebody who is aggravatedly having oral sex with people.
Okay. My point is they contain different information regarding how well he knew the boy.
Well, this is the statement from the inmate in prison stating that. So Steve Segrist is the one stating that Peterson had this connection. So this isn't Peterson stating it.
Okay. So Peterson tried to downplay it, but this guy basically ratted him out on how well he knew the boy then.
Right. And this guy might be embellishing too. So
yeah, he may very well be. Okay. He's an inmate himself as well.
Yeah.
So anyways, they listen. White. Say that again, Harriet.
I was saying, trying to find a way to get out easy, out of prison. Anything. That's what they do. Yeah. To kiss up to the system so he can get out. So he's embellishing things. Yeah.
Right. And he owned an AMX or a Javelin, rusty color primer, oversized tires, stickers, 5 to 6 years old. So this guy tends to know a whole heck of a lot about William Allen Peterson. So I'm not sure if he's hanging out with him after prison, but evidently, because this is the Circuit Court Probation Department that is being discussed here. All right. Anyways, investigation follow-up. Officers Dean and Sykes went to the area where the body was found. Officers were on the east side of the wall in the parking lot of the New Orleans Mall. Officers looked down and observed a small 2-inch by 4-inch card with the name Mark Stebbins on it. It is a card that was passed out at the funeral home. Card was preserved for prints and TOT. What is TOT? Do you know what that is, Nolan?
No.
I looked it up, and it's contradictory, and I can't remember what it stood for. It was something about, it was like handing off the document to another person or in the department, is what I understand. Let me tell you something about this document. This is one I did annotate further in my files, because I thought, wait a minute here, with the time was deceptive. It says 2/19. Well, that's when they found his body. But notice that there's no other date on this entire document, unless there was one at the bottom, and I don't believe there was. In the next document that came after this, or the one that I put up, you'll find that, in fact, it was not that one. It was the one I sent later this week. On the 23rd, the funeral occurred, so he would not have had access to a funeral card till the 23rd. As a matter of fact, they weren't let out until 9 a.m. in the morning. So, and in fact, the card was found at, I think, sometime in the middle afternoon. So they don't give you the full information on this card business on this particular document, which is a bit frustrating, you know.
Right. Well, and anybody that was at the funeral, and I saw the list, you provided the funeral book. I mean, there was lots and lots and lots of people who attended this funeral. Right, so a lot of people would have come into contact with this card.
Right, right.
So either the date is wrong or something's messed up.
The date is where their little box, that's their little way of organizing this. You'll see by the pattern of it, they're saying, okay, it's case number, and then the homicide. They're saying it's a homicide.
Stebbins and the date.
Stebbins, and then they found his body. His body turned up on 2/19/76. But then that's it. And I was like,
yes, every top right-hand corner of these documents contain that same info, Nolan. So I think that's just the header.
Yeah, it's
for this particular.
Okay, yeah, because the Impossible funeral wasn't until the 23rd.
Right. So that's just a marker, I think, for the crime when the body was found and the case number. But like there's no other.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no other date here. I mean, you'd have thought the officers would have at least marked the date in which they found the card, and they did not. Right. All right. So that brings us to the next slide. And I see all of these notes made next to these pictures. Are these these notes made by Cathy Broad?
I don't know exactly. I can't answer that. I don't know. It looked like there's two different types of handwriting. And I didn't embellish these because our subject right now, the chronology, is on Stebbins. So we may want to bring this up as we move forward with Stebbins, and you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I had to figure out, well, what are we going to say? What are we not going to say? How, far off track we're going to get. The most important thing about this document to me that I cherry picked out of this was, it clearly says in here they found sperm in the throat, and that document there is from the Dr. Olson document, which came out much later, and that's that name of that case. That's a police officer that stated that. But the frustrating part is going to be that no sperm shows on the evidence list. Whatever happened to that sperm that they said they had? Well, you ain't going to find anything out about it in the FOIA files, I can tell you that. So very frustrating, too, to find that later on. You know what I'm saying? It seems to me that Cathy Broad presented the Dr. Olson stuff to me after the FOIA files were presented, or maybe this was part of the FOIA files. This might actually have been, I'm going to clarify, I'm going to straighten myself on the statement. This was in the FOIA files, and I didn't know where it came from. And
okay, well, let me read it real quick, because I think it has some interesting information, whether it's true or not. It looks like somebody that is being questioned here. It rounds out kind of like a deposition transcript, right, Nolan?
That's
like
we've got
we got a D, K, and an O, and I'm not sure what that means.
Those are cops. Those are cops and investigators, and the O is Dr. Olson.
So we have Dean, and I know that we said Dean and Sykes over here on this one. All right, so D says, and Jill Robinson was 12. So now this is obviously well after the Robinson murder, 12 years old. Yes. Right. Well, certainly those two girls have great similarities. There's no getting away from it all. I think your presumption that both were done by the same person were correct. How long was the boy missing before he was found? K, the boy was missing 4 days. Just about exactly the same as the Robinson girl. He was picked up on a Sunday afternoon, exactly about the same time as this last girl was. And that was on February 15th last year. And he was found February 19th around noon. So he was gone 4 days. Now, just because somebody didn't find him doesn't mean that he hadn't been laid there before 4 days, right?
You're talking about Stebbins?
Stebbins, right.
Oh, no, there's tons of, I haven't shown you all the documents. I'm trying to keep this so that you can keep up with the amount of it. No, there's plenty of people that walk by with their dog and were there that morning.
Okay.
There was no body. That body showed up at roughly sometime around 11 in the morning, and there is a car attached to it. And, this is why you and I need to communicate, because I think you're going to want to see those next so that you can focus on those and glean what you want from those or what you can from those. So I'm just trying to, I'm thinking of continuity here on all this stuff. And I want to get across the point about this sperm thing and the evidence on that.
Let me finish reading it
for
before we go.
Before King, by the way, this is before King's case. I think that
all of this was okay.
I think so. I don't think this is right after Mihalik. This is not does not include the Tim King murder. I believe. I may be wrong on that. So that's the answer is another question you asked me earlier in this presentation. So go ahead.
Yes. When was this done? Okay. So it says, and what was the condition of the body? Let's see. Oh, wait. But the boy was missing 4 days, just about exactly the same as the Robinson girl. He was picked up on Sunday afternoon, exactly about the same time as this last girl was. And that was on February 15th last year. And he was found February 19th around noon. So he was gone 4 days. And what was the condition of his body? Okay, he was the one he had rope marks on his arms. He had definitely been sodomized. They found sperm in the throat, and he had a small wound on top of his head, but there was no fracture or anything like that. D, there was a lot of blood, though. There was a lot of bleeding. And K, but there wasn't any on the coat. The coat was clean because I seen the coat. D, on the inside of the hood, question mark, K, yes, the wound was even cleaned right out. This is why they came to the conclusion that he had been washed. You can see the rope mark there. And then O, very definitely, and his body was in equally good condition as the girl's. There was no appreciable post-mortem change. K, no. And so the interview continues. O, did they have any idea as to how long he had been in that spot? It was less than 24 hours, wasn't it? And so, yes, you're thinking that he was dropped there around 11. They found him at approximately what time?
About really very close to the time they think he was deposited there.
So when I'm looking at these other notes,
it was a busy area.
What was that, Nolan?
Within a couple of hours?
No, it wasn't even a couple of hours. I think that you'll see the documents in it. That's what the cops did do a good job. They were trying to narrow down, well, okay, if his body wasn't there by this time in the morning, they narrowed it down to being within an hour time frame between when he was deposited. And there's a car to go with that. There's a van to kind of go with that. Those I think we should look at next, but I didn't put them on here today because I thought, and if this is the way you want to go, you guys want to look at this next, I'll be happy. I mean, it's your presentation.
So you're saying this suspect was bold enough to dump this body midday? Absolutely,
in the morning, mid-morning when there'd be, of course, it's in back of the place near the dumpster area, but there were two vehicles that pulled up. One of them backed in, I think it was a van, had its lights on. There's another one that fits the description of the car possibly involved. There are a bunch of documents that you guys need to see that I should say a bunch of, but there are some interesting documents that address, well, who, and how was he transported. I'll give you a look ahead on the Stebbins case. He had morbid.
Well, I may go over it because I still have a bunch of your documents in here. So before we do a look ahead,
the blood settling in his buttocks or in his lower part shows that he was sitting up. Same way with Tim King when that come up with that. So he was really. So this guy transported him. Our suspect transported him sitting up in the car, and set him there. His legs were still. So he had lividity, they call it. And this was very nervy. This wasn't. No wonder they looked at it as a Zodiac Killer crime. No wonder. You know what I'm saying? No wonder.
All right. So this next document you stated fits descriptions of Jack Terrence and Mark Stebbins.
Here we have it right here. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, good. You got it.
All right. Officer received information from Lieutenant Shaver below. Subject called in the following tip. Pat Donnelly is the subject that called it in on 2/15/76 between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. He was at the Village Flea Market at 10 Mile and Woodward. He observed a late model GM, Buick or Cadillac, maroon/white in color with possible for sale signs in the windows. He observed a dark complected white male, 5'10", heavy build, approximately 45 years old. Holy crud.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is
there.
That is literally nailing down Jack at this time. He had medium length, dark thinning hair driving it. Next to him was a young white male, light complexion, reddish blonde hair. He stated it caught his eye because it looked like his nephew. The vehicle was south on Woodward from 10 Mile. That's redacted. Day he saw a picture of Mark Stebbins in the paper and felt this could be the boy in the car he saw. He could offer no further information at this time. So the possibility that this individual was literally driving him, so he would just look like he was asleep in the seat, basically,
right.
But he was currently dead.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hiding evidence in plain view.
Now, evidence
I can't wait for us to cover the assault that I sent you guys. I'm just listening, but yeah, definitely Jack was there. There was a reason.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm hyped that. Go ahead with this one. This one we saw already, but this one's worth double mentioning. This one's worth mentioning many times because I think Harriet nailed it with her observations. But
well, she also stated that she thought she knew the voice, and yes, we did already talk about this one, so I don't really need to go back over it. But your contention is that there's evidence of inside crime scene knowledge, and that her number was unlisted. So whoever called her and said the words to her that they're jacking off, or I'm going to come over and stick my
three keywords, Nanette: Dick, Jack, and King are what I see. And I think what Harriet was pointing out too. I'm parsing this, splitting up Jack King, just Jack and King. And
we know that there's many calls.
This woman's son just turned up, and he's calling. Right when the cops are there and taunting her. Who does that? So
she states that the voice was familiar, but it was muffled and she could not tell who it was. So if she recognized the voice, the person could likely have already had her phone number, and it's just pranking her.
Yeah, but
which is a rude prank.
Can I say something really quick? The solve that I got out of all of this, what you sent me, it brings up about the local exchange carrier, and that is at the time. Well, apparently Jack and his crew were involved and, knew everybody's phone numbers. Okay.
There you go.
So you're going to see that in the solve. Yes. So LEC, right there in Detroit News.
Who's this woman?
That's how we knew.
Is this Stebbins' mom?
He knows the number.
Yes, Nolan, it's Stebbins' mom.
Phone men in those days, and probably still have, they have more knowledge than everybody else. They can get, way back when they knew numbers. They could go up to a phone and dial a certain number, and it would tell them what that number was. So you didn't even have to, you know what I'm saying? All you had to do is hook your handset up, dial a certain number, and it would ring back to you what that number was. And if it was an unlisted number, you had it right away. Sophistication is the key thing that I'm trying to point with all that I presented and the way I present it. But go ahead.
Right.
So this is a great one because you got 3 very prime keywords there, and more via Harriet. So that's cool. Very cool. Go ahead.
Now you put this map out, and you were noting that these 2 lines are parallel.
Well, I'll tell you why I decided to do that, because in one of the, or at least one of the documents, they're talking about where the head was facing on these victims, where were the face. Like that was important to the cops, trained cops, investigators. I thought, okay, what about the directions? Well, there's some parallel lines here from where the person was abducted and where they're deposited. That happened twice. There's organization. What's the word? Order out of chaos 101. And the organized.
I thought that's what you were going to say. I felt it coming.
So there you go. Mm-hmm. So, and that's psychological, and that's in the book Mindhunter as being a very important aspect of the organized serial killer. You get a hint of that in the Silence of the Lambs film too, by the way. But
right.
anyway,
Right.
go ahead.
All right. So on our next one, we have a heavily annotated one that you have here. Can you see this one?
I can, and I was going to say that this is, I believe, tied to. This is later than Stebbins. You got a date on this one? Yeah. Let's see. Look at this.
Yeah, May 8th. This is 1978. So this is way after.
Right. I could not. I had to jump ahead because this one was too important to me because I've had this thing about talking about. The Zodiac Killer was talking about buttons. He misspelled them and everything. And here's a psychic says, button is somehow involved. What the hell? So whatever I wrote here on the sides was what I marked out something I retracted or whatever.
Well, let me read this real quick so that they understand the premise of this. So this is the following thoughts that were received by Miss Harris and her group of psychics. So we know how we feel about that.
I know.
All right, so it says north or northwest basement entrance of building where Tim was held. So you put out the 4 other reasons related to evidence I have yet to report. This statement is compatible with an exact location that I think holds a high probability of being the correct location, and I'm perfectly certain of this. No, but hopefully we'll see how it plays out. So she goes on to say that Donegan, Don Eigen, Donegan, Don Egan. So these are the names the psychics I'm assuming are coming up with. PW1019. I don't know what that means. Spiritual, beige plaid jacket, red, blue vertical lines. Invited Tim to see Rocky. A woman knows, and that may be this Carol. What's her face? The phone book that I said that has the receipts and is within the center of all of this, the crimes that are happening. Let's see. A woman knows, not responsible for one of the 4 killings, but we have 7 here. So they're only attributing, like I said, 4 murders when I think that legitimately the first 2 or 3 should be coupled with these 4. So let's see. Smoke marijuana. A shrine is involved somehow, and we know that there's a shrine in the League City deaths with Tim Miller's daughter, Laura Miller. The suspect, Tim believes, came back and created a shrine on her shallow grave where she was found. Let's see. Knows organist named Bill. Now, we come up with an organist in the little list letter, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
And we haven't seen the little list letter yet. That one's still to come out. And he talks about the organist. This person seen an organist. Now driving a red or brown Pontiac. Priest, father, or deacon involved. Homosexual. Button is somehow involved. Gripper clamp. Another person was with Tim in the parking lot. No plan to when and where children are taken. Suicide has been contemplated.
Well,
suicide's grave.
Suicide's graves, Tim Wilton. Well, and we know that there's plenty of indications that the killer or the suspect in these cases has stated he was going to take his own life. I want to go back and now read the Dr. Danto letter from Alan, because I think that he talked about wanting to, but I'll have to go back to confirm that. We're going to be coming up on that soon. Anyways, so more that Terry B is comment on this. However, this particular line, so no plan to when and where children are taken. However, this particular line I adamantly disagree with because the evidence clearly shows otherwise. As a matter of fact, I'm skeptical and very suspicious of this document. There seems to be several instances of false notions that have been planted in order to throw the police off the trail, so to speak. This statement by me is faulty, and I'll explain why in the text messages it's posted with. And what was that statement? That's because the evidence was clearly shows otherwise as when, okay, but as to where they were taken, that was certainly planned out in advance. So what was it that you found faulty about that?
I wrote this a long time ago, so you had to give me a moment to gather my thoughts. Let's see, what didn't I like? And I just put a crossover. I thought, okay, but where, yeah, I'm saying that's fiction because this is fiction. No plan. If somebody said that, wait a minute, you're holding these kids for how long? You're going to have a plan as to where you're going to take them.
Right.
When you're holding them for the long period of time. So you got a piece of fiction there that I circled in green. So I'm just saying, this is just something, I'm going to tell you something about, and I make my comments about psychics up in the upper left hand. When the cops get to where they have no other leads, they will revert and they will use psychics. And it's not, I'm not poo-pooing psychics altogether, but usually the ones that you can count on are the ones that aren't going to make positive statements. They're going to say, I'm getting this signal, and then they're going to say, but I don't know what it means. They're not going to tell you.
Right. And I don't really want to focus.
But
I don't really want to focus on what psychics have to say. I mean, you can take from it, you can add to it a million different ways from Sunday. Yes, have some led to good solves. Absolutely. Right. That is a variable that happens. But however they roll out is however they roll out. But interesting that they're talking about buttons.
I qualify my feelings in the upper left-hand corner about what I think about psychics, and it's not that big a deal. It's pretty much how everybody else is going to feel about psychics.
Right. Yeah. So we don't, it is what it is.
That.
Moving on though, you did send over a regional crime detection laboratory list of evidence, forensic evidence that was found on Stebbins. So it says that number 1 through number 4 was fur and hair from victim, swab from ice chest in suspect's vehicle, hair from ice chest and I'm not sure what suspect they're talking about here at this point. Let's see if I can tell. Chief Police, Southfield Police Department. I wonder if SFPD could be Southfield Police Department. No, because Southfield is one word. It would be SPD. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Southfield PD. All right.
We can find that out later about that.
But they are talking about swabs from the rear seat, hair, fur, and dirt from suspect's vehicle, hair from floor of the suspect's vehicle, victim's jacket, victim's pants. So how are they? Are they saying they found all of these things in one suspect's car?
No, and a lot of that stuff's going to be. No, this is just a person that's being handed this stuff to Charlotte L. Day. And there's other documents that I sent you later in the week where she's complaining about the fact that it would have been nice to have some other stuff at the same time that they omitted.
I may get to that. So if you start speaking about something that I may already have in here. All right. So hair from the floor.
Go ahead, but I would,
Can I finish?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Hair from the floor of suspect's vehicle, victim's jacket, victim's pants, suspect's jacket, victim's boots, victim's known hair, red fibers from suspect's vehicle, red fiber from victim's pants. So they are definitely doing some cross connection or at least some testing. It says no hairs were found from the vehicle that were the same as the victim's known head hair. So they didn't find any of Stebbins' hair inside. No fibers were found on the victim's clothing that were the same as the fibers from the vehicle. So it looks like they're excluding whoever this person is. And no blood or other significant stains were identified on the swabs.
Right. And of course, but
they're not saying who the suspect is.
They don't say who the suspect is because that's probably not information they want to even have.
Right. So it says, number 1, dirt from parking lot near body. Debris contains broken glass, small stones, soil, and tobacco fragments. Nothing of known significance was found. Number 2, dirt from under body. This debris consists primarily of vegetation, presumably native to the area, and is not unique in character. Blue wool fibers, similar to those from the blanket used to cover the body, are present. So he was found with a blanket covering him?
Well, that's another thing she's going to complain about is that she did not get that blanket given to her at the time or something. And that's left up in the air. So you're asking me a question I can't clarify for you.
Right. So blue wool fibers similar to those from the blanket used to cover the body are present. Dirt found near the body. This debris contains common vegetation, soil, broken glass, white rodent hairs, black rodent hairs, and one human head hair approximately 3 inches in length. Wavy and brown in color. No other hairs were found in other submitted items and correspond to this hair, and its presence is not likely to be significant. Small hand towel. No blood stains or characteristic fibers or hairs were found. Blue parka with hood. This jacket shows normal soiling from wear on both the outer surfaces and inside neck area. Blood stains are present on the hooded portion. Blue jeans. The jeans are in good, clean condition with the exception of of stained areas on the right rear and right leg. It seems probable that this is a mixture of dirt and oil from the parking lot where the body was found. Trace evidence includes red fibers that correspond to known red fibers from the American Legion Hall, white wool, red wool, 2 short yellow synthetic fibers, 1 yellow gold synthetic fiber, blue wool, 1 human head hair, 2 3/4 inches long, rodent hairs and dog hairs. The trace evidence is of questionable value. Rodent hairs are not only common and of wide distribution, but are known to be present at the site where the body was found. The dog hairs are very similar to dog hairs on the blanket used to cover the body, and especially since relatively few were found, white wool fibers are common and many are present on the blanket. This blanket is also the probable source of the blue wool and may very well be the source of any foreign fibers and hairs recovered from the clothing. Black belt. This was intact and in normal position on the jeans. Black rubber boots. The upper portion of the boots is clean with soil present on the soles. A small smear of blue paint is present on the left boot. This has the characteristic of a decorative type paint, and its origin is yet unaccounted for. The location and small amount do not suggest a highly probative value.
1 point. 1 point. Blue paint, blue decorative paint will show up on the left boot. Blue paint will show up on Robinson's bike. Go ahead, proceed.
Right. The socks show normal wear since washing, as indicated by both their appearance and body odor. Underpants, urine and fecal stains are present. The condition of the underpants, disregarding the fecal and urine stains, is consistent with their having been worn for a relatively extended period of time, and no semen was found. T-shirt. The T-shirt is soiled and suggests considerable wear since washing. Both the stained and soiled appearance and the presence of perspiration odor support this contention. Blood stains are present. Red sweatshirt. The sweatshirt, like the jeans, is clean in contrast to the undergarments. No body odor or significant staining is present. There is a small amount of blood present at the neck. It is unfortunate that the dirt and debris samples from the parking lot and the blanket used to cover the body were not made available to the laboratory until May of 1977. It would have been particularly useful to know that a dirty blanket had been used to cover the body and that this blanket is a probable source of trace evidence present on the clothing. I think that's very important.
Right. But they didn't do it.
Well, and interestingly enough, so I was going to say they washed his outer clothing, but had him sitting in his undergarments for the entire time that he was captive.
Well, it's hard to tell. I can tell you from reading that. You have to read it and decide for yourself. But I tend to think that, I'd be speculating.
Well, it's saying right, Nolan. Like it literally was saying that. I mean, the undergarments had been worn this entire time, that they're full of a body odor. They look like that they've been worn. And then these other items look like they had been cleaned and placed on him after the fact. And so the suspect then took a blanket and covered him with it. And that's where most of this trace evidence was found on the body because of the blanket.
Perhaps. Didn't have that blanket, so I don't know for sure.
Yeah, why would they wait a year to analyze the blanket?
Right.
Exactly.
Because
you're
that's
get
where
a lot of that with this case. You're going to get a lot of stuff like that, and you're not going to like it. Sorry.
So you had some things that you had written in here. Are you able to read this, Terry?
Yeah. Let's see. Several years ago, my former next door neighbor at the time, an assistant chief of police, Minneapolis PD. He also happened to be very bright and level-headed black guy. He told me that a lot of cops are assholes and that the job tends to harden people even further because of the fact they're dealing with very negative situations on a daily basis. He said the job was also a magnet for some very bad actors. For a prime example of a grossly incompetent cop, look at the footage of the former detective Linda Arndt of the Boulder BD Police Department.
Why are we going into her?
Well, I don't know. You put it up for me to read.
Well, but this was connected to OCTK, so I'm not sure why that. So go down to the next paragraph where it says BTW, because I think you go back into OCTK.
Let me finish my point about that middle paragraph. That has to do with me.
I don't have that. I don't have that kind of time, and I'm trying to stay stuck with OCTK.
I'm venting there about Miss Cheadle and the attempt on Trump's life, which pissed me off. And so this is, I had to read this. I know what I was leading into.
Okay.
Oh, this is the one I
Okay.
sent you.
We're
Okay, by the
almost
way,
out of. We're actually no. Terry. We're out of time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to just get you read in regards to OCCK, and I didn't know that JBR was in there.
Told me that.
Well, I didn't know that you put JBR in the middle of it.
No harm, no foul. But I'm just saying.
I know. We'll have to come back to it. I just realized that we're literally down to our final seconds, you guys. I want to thank everybody for being here. We will pick this up next week and continue on with the additional documents from Terry.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Awesome.
Have a great
Bye. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, Terry.
I'm anxious to hear that, Harriet. I got to hear that. I'm really anxious.
I want to send it to you.
All right.
We
gotta go.
Send something to Terry. Bye-bye.
That'd be great.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh,